Hello, welcome to another week of delightful discussions. Today I'm excited to share with you a lunch and learn. And you guys will have seen, some of you, that we actually posted kind of a fun and funny question for you. But I think it is a really great starter for kicking off what we're going to learn about today. And I am curious, do you know what a tickler file is? Oh, good. James has already answered. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about actually so much more than that today. That just happens to be one little piece that I am excited about amongst the many other things with my guest today. So stay tuned. All right, you guys, today I get to bring to you Larry Tribble, who is the author of Do Busy Right. I'm going to let him actually share a little bit about his own story with you guys because I think it is extremely relevant to what he is teaching today. So without further ado, I share with you Larry Tribble.
Hey there.
Yay. Hi, Larry.
I'm catching my breath because I logged on with 15 seconds to spare, or maybe not.
You know, it always happens that when you have a show and you're going to teach great things,
nevertheless,
difficulties happen, right?
Yeah, nevertheless, here we are,
Yes.
Makeup,
Yeah. I love it. Well, listen, let's dive right in because I know you have a lot of great content for us today, and I'm excited to have you share. But I do want to at least say that, Larry and I did a run through of what we were going to talk about today. And I got to tell you guys, even from the smallest chunks of what he shared, I learned so much. So I am going to tell you, have your notebook out and ready to take notes, and also have a drink or your lunch. This is a lunch and learn, and sit back, relax, and enjoy, because he is going to share some real major gold nuggets with us today. So, Larry, take it away. Share us with your story, if you would, first.
Sure. Yeah. So I did 25 years in IT management in Central Alabama for various companies. So I was managing software development projects. And so my job was to project manage through these things, right? And so that came and went in bits and pieces. And then in 2009, for my fourth midlife crisis, I joined the Ph.D. program at the University of Alabama in the business school. And I finished that up in 2016, and since then I've been running my coaching practice with various clients. Sometimes that's an almost full-time assignment, sometimes it's not. But during the PhD program, really, now I had studied all the way back to Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I had studied productivity and continued that study through, big books in productivity, 7 Habits, David Allen's Getting Things Done. You may know the GTD methodology. That's what he's famous for. On up through Merlin Mann, Cal Newport, all these people that are writing on this. And what happened in the PhD program, it really crystallized for me because I was running side projects while I was doing my PhD work. And so I have multiple offices, different computers, different things, and I'm always wanting to be in a place and to have my stuff with me. And so working through that to have the stuff distributed across different computers, which in, say, 2005 was not a straightforward task.
Right.
And so during all that, and with the project management background, I'm working out ways for my personal productivity, my personal information management. So that culminated in the Attention Compass methodology, which is my coaching package. So we said we're going to implement an Attention Compass, and that's a tool set and a platform. And then the book, as you kindly mentioned, is going to be coming out. We're targeting the first quarter of 24 for that, and it's Do Busy Right, because we're busy. We're all busy. And we want to be busy, but
Right.
if we're not doing busy the right way, it can kill us. So that's kind of where all that's at.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. So, as much as you have so much information that you could share with us, I suggested that you pick your juiciest pieces. And we are, of course, going to share how people can work with you further and learn more. Can you go ahead and dive right into your very first topic that you want to share with us?
Right. So we'll do probably 2 or 3, and I can get off on tangents, so don't base me. So the first, so this is thinking about productivity in a broader sense. Okay, this is not, use a bullet journal level tips. This is thinking about productivity and thinking about how a system might work in your life. Maybe even attributes that you want to be true in your life, and you'll know that you have a good productivity system when these attributes are true. And the first one is to stop saying, I'd better do it before I forget about it.
Ooh.
You ever say that?
Always.
So
Always.
So here's the problem, okay? It's not true that every task has one single time at which it is doable or best done. There are many different opportunities and times to do anything we want to do, right? I mean, certainly if you want to talk to your mom, it's probably a good idea to have her in the room or on the phone or whatever, right? But it's not, 2:09 and 38 seconds, I've got to launch this conversation. So I don't know what the right time is to do whatever task you're contemplating, but I can almost guarantee you that before I forget about it is not that right time.
I love how you say that. So true.
So, the problem is, and this really kind of digs down into the cost of interruption and distraction. Okay.
Yes.
So we define all these things fairly tightly in the attention compass system, but basically you're doing something and you have a thought, and the thought is, hey, I forgot to feed the dog, right? And thought 2 is, well, I better do it before I forget about it. So what happens then is you interrupt your work and you get up from what you're doing and you go and you feed the dog, okay? But you're accomplishing something. Feed the dog. I'm going to say it's relatively minor. My dogs are never within 30 minutes of starving to death. I don't know other people's feeding schedules, but mine are pretty lush dogs. And so, what happens is you stop doing what you're doing, you get up, you go do the thing, and you come back, and the interruption is costly in terms of your work product. And it's not just the 5 minutes that it took to go feed the dog. It's you've got to spend time reloading what you were doing into your skull, right? Because you've been thinking about something else while you're feeding the dog. Yeah. And the real challenging thing, Mariah, is the impact, difficulty of the task you were doing. High difficulty, high impact tasks are harder to reload. Thus, it's harder to get back in the flow.
Yeah.
Right? And so that also the cost of the interruption also varies with the length of the interruption. Right. But the most important factor is when you're really doing quality work that really matters to the world or to your company, or that's when interruptions are very, very costly. And so,
yes, I love the tangible way that you say that too. The cost of distraction and interruption. I think you're so right. When you have an important message or something that you are trying to do that is impactful, you really, the world around you needs you to not be paying that cost.
right.
So good.
You need to be getting your result delivered, right? So work in progress in the knowledge work world that we all inhabit, work in progress is pretty much useless. right? If you have an information asset that's going to change the way people view the world, or you have some coaching or something, while you're thinking about it, before you've delivered it to somebody, its value is pretty close to zero.
Right.
So we've got to get these things finished and in a deliverable state so that we can give them to somebody, and that's when they produce value.
Oh, so good. So good. Okay.
So that's number one, right?
I love it.
World so that you never again say, I'd better do it before I forget about it, right?
So good.
Scribble it down on a little piece of paper and get back to what you were doing.
Ah, yes.
And then
which I just happen to know leads really well into your next one, right?
Yes, it does.
I love it.
So the second tip is to find a way to get your thoughts out of your head. Okay. So our brains are miraculous. Some people say it's the most complicated thing we're aware of in terms of neuronal connections and all this stuff that I dimly understand. But it's a great place for imagining, but it's a terrible place to hold ideas, right? Now, our memories are wonderful things. It's amazing. For example, you hear a few bars of a song that you haven't heard in 20 or 30 years at my age, and how many of the words you can remember, right? And you haven't heard it in decades. And, the music starts and tempo's there, and all of a sudden you're just remembering these words, right? That ever happened to you?
Oh, yeah, totally.
And it's phenomenal, right? But here's the problem. It's unpredictable. So here's the example. At my office, away from home, and my wife calls me up and she says, hey, pick up milk on the way home. And I go, yes, dear, I'm happy to pick up the milk. I want to help out. Everything's great. The only problem is I cannot do it right now. Right? So the rest of the afternoon, what's happening in my head?
Thinking about it.
Hey, milk. Don't forget the milk. Right? And the one time my brain refuses to remind me of it is the time that it would do me the most good, which is 30 seconds before I need to turn right into the grocery store.
Of course.
It's almost guaranteed that will not be the time your brain reminds you.
It's true.
So we got to get these things out of our heads and out into the world in some form. Okay? Now, there's much, much better and much, much worse forms. Okay.
Right.
So congratulations to people who stick sticky notes on their monitor bezel, right? Because the bezels are getting smaller and you're going to no longer be able to stick Post-it notes there.
Right.
So this is a good thing. Okay. You're going to have to break this habit anyway. Right. So, if you're getting it all out of your head, that's a great thing because it will stop distracting you. Right? But the downside of getting it all out of your head is you will be amazed how much stuff it is.
Yeah. So true.
And we do this on maybe a daily basis. We get out our big yellow legal pad and we write down the things to do. Yay.
There's mine.
And while those things are top of mind for us, it's very difficult then from that list to put them into the right context so that we do them at the right time, whatever that is. And so, it's a lot of stuff. You got to get it out there, but you got to get it somewhere where it comes back to you at the appropriate time. Now, here's my promise. If you do this, here's my promise. You will be calmer. You will sleep better. You won't have the 3 a.m. wake up, clutch your chest moment.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is across whatever field you happen to be in, right?
Right.
Because we all, to some degree, are knowledge workers. And so we all take our work home with us, and it reminds you, hey, you didn't do the blah, And so
I can see how, sorry, Larry, even when you're saying that, I can see how creatives could use this too. You know, we tend to think of only like business, office type professionals, but a creative, you know, when you've got that idea in your mind, if you don't have something nearby to write it down at 3 a.m., you're never going to go back to sleep.
Absolutely.
So if you got to sketch it out or do whatever,
yeah,
so important. I love
but
that.
If you have a process in place, so you build in time to be thoughtful about what you're doing, right? You build in moments, right? I find that I'm most creative while I'm doing the work, but different people work different ways. And so, you know, one of the things that we build in the broader attention compass scheme is a time to sit down and reflect and let your brain talk to you about what it's still trying to hang on to, right?
So
but
good.
As you'd expect in the Ph.D, I had to write a dissertation, which is a 150-page book.
Oof.
And keeping track of the various bits and pieces of information, you need to have a really good tool, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the promise. If you start getting stuff out of your head into a tool, okay, electronic, for reasons that I won't go into right now, but have a lot to do with it being where you need it when you're there, then your mind calms down. There's space for creativity rather than space for panic, right? And you get it all out there. And then you build ways for it to come back to you at appropriate times.
I love it. All right. So lay your tip number 3 on us.
Tip number 3. So,
which I know goes together, right?
It does, right? And this is all about, you're going to be shocked when you get this stuff out of your head, how much of it there is. Right? When I coach the Attention Compass system, so it's a 10-week course, 1 hour a week, direct coaching, right, with me. And I coach people to use Evernote as the tool. So half the people threw stuff at me and the other half of the people threw stuff at them. Okay. It's a controversial platform. No more so than for me. Right. But it is so far the best platform I've found in terms of its particular feature set. So we can get into that in more detail in another venue. But so Evernote is notes. Okay. I currently have something on the order of 25,000 Evernotes.
Wow.
And I can find my stuff because of how the storage is structured. And we use several different tools to do that. So the point of that is, if there's that much stuff, it's going to take some time for you to get organized around that. Okay. It takes a lot of work to get to this calm productivity. It's very easy to live in stress-based productivity.
Right. We're used to that.
We are. Everybody's used to it. You know, I talked to a potential client and he said, Larry, if you take the stress out of my life, I won't do anything.
I won't know what to do.
Right. If I don't have deadlines, right? And so we do incorporate deadlines, but what we try to do is, for those of you that are Covey fans, right, and you understand the quadrant system, right, we try to spend a lot of time working in quadrant 2, which is important but not urgent, so that things don't move into the important and urgent quadrant 1. And there's a whole part of the coaching where we get into this in detail. So it takes a lot of work to simplify. So one thing is the structure and the one place and setting it up and getting it right, so that you can find your stuff. 2 is accessible from everywhere. Wherever you are, you need to be able to lay your hands on this information, because you never know when you might need something. So that kind of eliminates most paper-based systems.
Right.
Because if you try and take all your paper with you, how many of those journals do you have, Myra, on a shelf somewhere in your house? Don't answer that. Don't answer.
A lot. Yeah.
Right. So we transition out to the electronic world, right? And all 25,000 of my notes are accessible right here. It's always with me. If I've got 5 minutes at the doctor's office, I can look and see if I can find something to do to make that time. The Bible says redeem the time. Well, that's redeeming the time that the doctor is trying to steal from me. Right.
Right.
So a lot of work simplify. You got to have one place. There's got to be a structure to that place. Got to be accessible from everywhere. And then the other thing, and we mentioned this a minute ago, so there's lots of capture of these thoughts as they occur to us. Capture is the term that we use in Attention Compass to talk about getting it out of your skull into the world.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of different ways to do that. Some are better than others, but it has to be fast, right? If you have to find your iPad and light up a particular app and wait for it to boot, right, so you can get your idea down,
Mm-hmm.
A, that's increasing the interruption time and thus the cost.
Yeah.
And B, there's a fair chance that you will have forgotten it while you're trying to do all this stuff.
Right.
What happens when somebody tells you a phone number you don't know? What does your brain do while you're looking for a pencil and a piece of paper?
It's holding on to it, trying to repeat it.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And you grab the piece of paper with an audible sigh of relief. You start writing this stuff out, right?
Yes.
And so when we think about how to envision a system and how to envision a lifestyle, if you will, or a process where we're managing our information very well, think about those three things.
Mm-hmm.
Do something so that you can stop saying, I'd better do it before I forget about it, right? Has a lot to do with finding a good way to get your thoughts out of your head so they don't rattle around in there and wake you up at 3 a.m. And then just recognize that it takes a lot of work to get to the point where you're confident in your system such that then your brain relaxes and your brain goes, it's okay, right? I don't have to remember that anymore. And it's a process. But when we think about the lot of work to simplify thing, it takes a lot of work to simplify. Just recognize that this is work that you're doing already, right? If you spend a day tracking how much time you spend looking for the stuff that you need, you will be shocked at how much time it takes.
Agreed. So, I love it. So, Larry, those are just such good tips, and I could tell like you could keep going further, right? There's so much more to it, but I think that those were really good to just honestly, anyone watching this could just get started with those 3 tips and probably be much more productive in life. Right? So, before we wrap up, how can people work with you? What is the best way for them to learn more about your system, learn more about you and what you do?
Yeah. Well, we've got a couple of things underway. Currently, the best way is to just reach out to me, and I'm happy to discuss this. I'm a consultant, so the first hour is free, right? I mean, that's the way it works.
Sure.
My website is dobusywrite.com. Do busy, right?
Oh.
Hang on. Am I back?
Oh, yeah, you're good.
The whole computer went blank.
Oh, no. Well, you're still here. We could hear you.
dobusywrite.com.
Okay. And I do believe that is already in our video description. So you definitely go there. Yep.
Right. And this is out on LinkedIn Live. So I have connections with potentially a good bit of the audience. If you want to connect around this stuff, just in the message, just tell me, I was on the call and we'll connect up and see where we can go with that.
Yeah.
We have a PDF product on the website that is a guide to implementing Attention Compass on Evernote. Okay, so you can go out and you can buy that today. The best way, I think, to get this part of your life under control, which basically means getting all the rest of your life under control,
right,
is to just reach out and I'll walk you through it. I mean,
awesome.
Just think about the value of being able to be productive and have your information where you need it when you're there. So
yeah.
and
Being able to be calm. And I really do think you're right on something there, that a lot of people wouldn't know how to even handle that.
well, we don't know anymore what it feels like, what calm productivity feels like, most of us.
Yeah.
Right. We've been so deadline driven, and we've been so driven by David Allen's phrase is we're driven by the latest and loudest.
Yes. So true.
And so, and then the amount of information that's coming at us has never been greater than it is now.
Yeah.
And so how do you stay on top of that? Right. So it has proven useful. I've coached with, 150 or more people over the last 10 years. And I hear comments like, I've literally had clients tell me, I'm sleeping better.
Yes. Yes.
I've had people who said, I'm on medication for anxiety and I feel better. And I go, well, I'm not that kind of doctor. Okay. And so I think a lot of our stress and pressure is environmental. And if we take the steps that we need to take in order to control that, then I think we're much, much better off.
And I got to share, Larry, just in thinking about what you shared, just in these three tips, nothing more. I can see, when being a coach and a business owner, and I have a couple other things that I do, which most of us do these days, right? Most of us don't do just one thing. We have multiple emails, multiple modes of communication, multiple everything. I can just think of how, as I implement this myself, it's going to be really helpful in so many ways, especially, and I think this is something everyone around me deals with on a day-to-day basis, especially in communication, because sometimes I can't remember if I talked to this person on TikTok Messenger, Instagram, Facebook, was it email, was it a text, was it this email? Yep. And just in the fact that, talking about capturing and putting everything in one place, that's important, right? That alone just makes my brain like, relax and chill, because I know that once I implement this, it's going to help me to know, okay, everything I need is in this one place and I can come back to it. I'm not going to forget about an appointment, or I'm not going to forget about something that I set up on email, but I forgot to put it in my calendar.
Yep. Absolutely. And there are processes around that, right? But the first thing we've got to do is we've got to lower the stress level.
Yes.
So that when you send the email, you figure out how to record not only that you sent it, but how you sent it. Yeah. Once you've communicated, right?
Right.
From time to time, I'm still human, right? So I forget.
You don't have this perfectly figured out?
No, not quite. I'm working on it every day. But, to think, okay, it was important for my sales, for my business, it was important for me to communicate with this individual. Okay. Did I do it?
Yes.
Now, I've got 3 different email accounts that I'm running. I communicate on LinkedIn. I communicate on various platforms like the 48 Days platform, And so if I'm not confident that I've communicated, look at all the places I have to go,
right,
to figure out whether or not I have.
Yeah.
And think about that as search for information that you could have just recorded. Right? So there's a big piece there.
I love it. Oh my gosh. You have shared so much gold just in these tips. So guys, imagine how much more Larry has to offer with his services. Please make sure that you reach out to him, especially, think of the cost of your distraction and interruption and the amount of stress, anxiety, and just straight up busyness that creates in your life. Larry, do you have anything you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Yeah, we didn't answer the main question.
Oh my gosh, you're right. We totally
What is
forgot.
a tickler file?
Okay. Let's talk about this tickler file. I completely
Okay, well, we're
forgot.
out of time. Okay, so a tickler
Let's
file is
do
a
it.
technology. Well, a habit, a use case, whatever you want to say. That's historical, going back about 100 years, and it pops up about once a decade because somebody says, "Hey, this is a great tool. You should use it." So what I've done is I've recorded a video on what a tickler file is, how to set it up, and how it fits into your greater productivity scheme. So
Yes.
we're on LinkedIn. If you'll reach out to me via messaging in LinkedIn and just tell me that you want to have access to this, then I'll give you a link to the YouTube video that I've recorded. There's a 5-minute version, there's a 20-minute version, and there's a 30-minute version, so I can meet all of your needs for this set of information. So if you want to do that, just reach out to me via LinkedIn message, or even my email address is in my contact information.
And I got to say, I won't give anything away because I actually think people need to reach out to you to get this. When you mentioned the tickler file, it was like this, oh my gosh, I remember this back in when I don't want to say, because I don't feel like aging myself. But I was like, right, what a great system. And you've not only talked about a way to do that physically, but you actually talked about a way to do it digitally. And I will say, it is a piece of genius that really does need to make a comeback.
It does. It's very, very useful. Now, I explained in the video, it will not do everything. Okay.
Right.
It has a particular purpose. It's like your calendar. Okay. If you're trying to make your calendar do everything, then you're going to break your calendar. Okay.
Right.
It's an important piece and a good way to start thinking about a tool set that will help you keep up with your information.
Yeah. So good. Okay. I'm so glad you remembered that because you're right. That was so important and I absolutely loved it. I want to implement it myself. So, all right. We're going to leave it at that, guys. Make sure you reach out to Larry or myself to get information about this tickler file concept. Believe me, you do not want to not know about this. I'll put it that way. A couple double negatives in there, but it is so good. All right. Thank you so much for joining us this week, guys. Make sure that you leave any questions that you have, any comments. I will make sure that Larry gets to see those. And I know you guys got as much out of this as I did. So please make sure that you reach out. All right. We'll see you next week. Have a great day. Bye-bye.